Hello and welcome to the FinTech Times. My name is Tyler and today we're here at PAY360 in London having a great time. Today I'm joined by Michael. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing well, Tyler. Thank you very much. And you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, enjoying the event. Are you having a good time at the event?
I am. It's actually quite well visited. It's like a renewal of people coming out. It's like the end of COVID, beginning of spring. And yeah, there are more people than I would have expected in there. So I feel alive today.
It's like a breath of fresh air, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Michael, if you'd just like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about where you come from?
Of course, yeah. My name is Michael. I'm with the banking circle. Normally I'm working out of Copenhagen, so I had an early morning flight here directly from Copenhagen. I've been in banking for over 15 years, and the last 10 years I've been focusing solely on payments, both cross-border and domestic payments, ecosystems, the vendors, the central banks, the ACHs. Currently I'm filling a position within Banking Circle called Head of Local Clearing, and our main responsibility is in fact those players, the central bank, the ACHs, the technology providers and the owners, basically the lawgivers or legislation holders here like Pay UK in the UK. So it's a little bit of tech, it's a little bit of politics, and it's a lot of regulations. So that hot pot, that's where I feel like a fish in the water. Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant. Well done. Thank you.
Thanks.
So you mentioned that you specialize in cross-border payments.
Yeah.
What I'm really interested to know is because when you have cross-border payments, there's often things with like cost and the time scale of it. Can banks find their way with cross-border payments, or is it up to the new entrants to take the lead?
Good question. My immediate answer would be they would have to. Basically, now that we're talking about the world is reopening again, the last 2 years with COVID has basically proven that society can go on a lockdown. The way we used to trade and do e-commerce have changed significantly. We didn't go to shops, we were sitting at home being locked up during the COVID. That has actually put a lot of pressure on the banking sector or the digital market, because people were having a lot of time at home. They were not traveling, they were not going out drinking or for restaurants. They were spending a lot of their money and their free equity on shopping online. And the world has become a smaller place in that sense, because we have big players opening with marketplaces, opening up for even the smallest of businesses in going in, being able to promote their goods on a global scale. So we would need to find a way to actually go in and make sure that it's democratized. It's not only for the few that can do a large amount cross-border payments that can take up to 5 days and cost $50 as such. It needs to be brought down so it's for everybody. A lot of people, or it's common to sort of saying it's also because of the global networks that is so poor, that's why it's so expensive. And I don't necessarily disagree on all of that in the statement, but partially I do, because it's more like how the banks are using it that is giving the friction on these global banking networks. So they would need to think about how they utilize networks up in the media now with the geopolitical situation in Ukraine. You're seeing SWIFT being referenced a lot. Should we close down SWIFT? Should we close down SWIFT? My mom doesn't know what SWIFT is in there, but that is being used as the standard or the norm for the bank's network. And you can't blame SWIFT for this being expensive here. It's how the banks are using it. So banks need to reinvent themselves on this particular topic here. And there are many drivers for that out there right now on how to do that, but it's the inefficiency and how banks apply those global banking networks that makes this super complicated and super expensive, both due to the manual handling, but also due to the heavy regulation and legislation around it. What would it actually take to make a seamless, frictionless cross-border payment here? This is what we need to figure out over the coming years as being banks. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of hurdles to overcome on the road to seamless transactions. I mean, where are we on that road right now?
I would say we're just at the beginning. We have come some way on it because it's starting to become focus on it. I myself started in capital markets as a trader, trading money market, FX and derivatives, and when moving into more transaction banking activities, there was my old mentor, an old guy from a bank, an associated bank, said, Michael, think about what you're doing. Payments and transactions will never become sexy. But here we are, 2022, and I think payments are sexy more than ever right now. And this is due to the focus that has come on payments right now. And I think that's an important first step. So where are we? There are so many initiatives going on, either globally or regionally, but also locally, trying to optimize these things. It's a little bit about collaboration, it's a little bit about legislation and regulation that could also give it a push around it, and then it's about technology. And if you can master these three things in engaging in a collaboration, making sure that the regulators can give that push and create an incentive, or at least a demand for demanding banks to actually go in that direction, as well as the banks upping their technology stacks in there, then I think those would be the primary drivers for moving that digital transformation forward as I see it right now. But we're only at the beginning, I would say, in order to democratize cross-border payments seamlessly, digitally, and instantly. Yeah.
Well, you say that we're just at the beginning of this journey. But do you think, I mean, of course, the pandemic has had a massive impact on cross-border payments and the wider pay tech ecosystem in general. Do you think that it's changed forever? Will it ever go back? Will people ever get bored of what we're seeing now, the new innovation?
No, I don't think so, because I agree. The world is a different place now. Is it a better place or a worse place? I'm not the one to judge that, but it's definitely changed, and also the way that we are thinking, that can be seen in the purchasing patterns, the focus on meta-universes, in creating something which we 20 years ago would have saying a humbug, in that sense of saying it's not real, it's fake. But it's actually growing, and the way we are thinking with digital currency, stable coins, non-fungible tokens, NFTs, and what we're seeing in there, it's becoming real because we're making it real. So I think the habits of shopping online being critical around the price and the quality, not so much what your local shop can offer or the the national go-to chain of shops that has gone online here. People are not afraid anymore of spreading it out and actually trying different things. They feel secure on global networks and marketplaces here. And if you can get the right product to the right price, then if it's Australia or Brazil or locally, you want to get it where it makes the most sense for you in that sense.
Well, absolutely. I think you mentioned a bit about NFTs and about digital tokens.
Yep.
There. Do you think digital tokens are the way forward for cross-border payments, or are they too difficult? Will they be too much trouble? What's your view?
Interesting question. The short answer is no. I don't think it's the answer. There is a lot of things that could speak for it, but there's equally many things that could speak against it. Me myself is not a believer in that sense, because it's a little bit the digital currencies and the whole blockchain and distributed ledger was set in motion with Bitcoin as being sort of the way of aspiring anarchy into this, taking away the regulators' power and saying we've built something that's better, come and build on that. So either you want to go anonymous on this, or elsewise you want to hand over to the CBDCs, the central bank digital currencies here, and make them innovate on the blockchain principles. That could give other complications, such as full control to a very small amount of people in there. I use the the analogy right now. So tobacco is up for being forbidden in the Nordics as we speak right now. And people are saying if you had a CBDC, you would actually give the authority for regulators and central banks to enforce based on your social security number that you will never be able to buy with your digital wallet and your digital currency even though you own it. They would be able to take control and basically just enforce regulation via that. So a little bit of the neoliberalist in me and the sort of freedom to make your own choices, even though they're stupid now. I'm not a smoker myself, but it's just an example here. You're taking that a little bit away and giving the power over 100%, or at least the ability to enforce it 100% with the CBDCs. So there needs to be some strong regulation about what you do it from an ethical perspective in order to actually go down that route. Another thing, saying I think it will take a long time for the world to adhere. So if you go over in the other ballpark on the sort of the Bitcoin or stablecoin on the NFT side here, saying the central banks and the clearings and what people will deem as bureaucracy, basically saying, oh, those bastards shouldn't control me in that sense, and they're so heavy, they're dinosaurs, are saying they're put in the world for a reason, and it's consumer protection. So the reason why central banks and clearings and the law books referred to as schemes have been built up around it, it's for one thing and one thing only, it's for you and me. So nobody can steal from our Bitcoin wallet as such, because you have consumer protection built in many of these schemes here. So some of the regulations and inconvenience or bureaucracy as it's seen there actually comes for a reason. So you need to be able to unite the convenience, the consumer protection, the transparency, the feel good, the user experience with something that is also steering into the future as something that will be sustainable in the future. And if you take away the physical currency, which is the direction many societies is moving ahead to, digital currency societies, there are some hard choices that needs to be made also from a democracy perspective in what it is that we want to do with that new enabled technology and choices that we stand on in the future. Yeah.
Well, it's very interesting what you put forward there, and the fact that you say that these things do exist for our benefit, but they're just not quite in motion yet, in full motion, and there needs to be almost like a holistic approach to this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard, and a good point, because you're saying it as sort of the end game, but what would it take for you to actually get there into something where it would feel comfortable? And I think my take on that would be more back to the collaboration. We're seeing schemes popping up, sort pan-regional. I think the SEPA is the best evidence of that, the single European payment area, where all the European countries have gone together and you can actually transfer in the same currency as a part of the EU experiment with the single currency, but you can actually transfer cross-border across Europe, also into the non-Euro countries like Britain right now after Brexit, and also Denmark with its own currency, Norway and Sweden as well, and some other countries where you can actually reach them within the SEPA zone under the scheme, even though they are having another currency in there. We're also seeing the P267 popping up in the Nordics right now. There are still some fundamentals that need to be in place when you do that. You need the settlement, you need a strong central bank settlement base to mitigate settlement finality on when the risk shifts hands from your bank to my bank. In that sense, you need static rules for everybody to play after. And then once you have those, and then there's still the complication in adhering and operationalizing, living up to that technology. And what about currency conversions, etc.? So there's a bunch of things that if you try to consume them in one chunk and saying NFTs or stable coins or CBDCs, to saying, well, people lose track on how to get there. But if you can bite it up and start building those regional initiatives, if you can make them work, if you can build them together in the end, that will sort of be the staircase and people declimatizing to the thought on getting there. And then the elephant will all of a sudden not look that big if you can set that in motion. And I think we have some pretty good building blocks of actually getting there, and that would, I think that would demystify it and make it a little bit more tangible and digestible for everybody, users, regulators, central banks, etc. Feeling that they are not handing away everything to something that they don't know, but keep some of their independence and sovereignty on some of these things here. Without feeling pressured or neglected too much. Yeah.
Well, that was a very good answer, and if only these things were simple and and easy, but nothing in pay tech ever is.
No.
Well, we will have to see. I mean, there's a lot of ecosystems that are doing really well. Some of them aren't doing so well. But what you mentioned about the different regions working together to facilitate a blanket sort of end game, that would be really interesting. And it would be really interesting to see how different regions help different regions as well, I think, yeah.
I agree. And it's scattered right now. We have so many ecosystems, so much tech liability across here where it all just screams collaboration, because in the end it's for you and me, it's for the consumers here. So why can't we work more together? There are some independence thoughts and sovereignty on these things here that could be compromised, and if you speed those things up. But if we can work together and build together our regional payment schemes, not only via SWIFT, they can be a facilitator, but due to lumps of regulation, then you have the settlement foundation with the central banks, you have the clearing and payment schemes working together, and there's no need for you not to build on top of that with new technologies as you have here in the UK, the COP, the confirmation of payee, or request to pay, where you could sort of easily adopt that with data across regions where you don't compromise the settlements, the clearings. But the layered services on top in here, you could also collaborate on here, and that would probably be easier to operationalize because you're not dependent on some of the settlement finality and money actually moving and the trust that entails to do, where working together could also democratize and set those kind of schemes free across regions. So perhaps they will be the drivers for the collaborations across, who knows?
Maybe. Well, you know what they say, a problem shared is a problem halved,
Exactly.
So,
spot on.
They heard it here first. Well, Michael, it's been a pleasure to speak to you.
Likewise.
Cross-border payments.
Likewise.
Thank you so much, and I hope your jet lag isn't too bad from...
No, it's only 1 hour difference, so I can't really blame that. So,
Yes.
but thank you for having me, Ted.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Michael. Thank you.
Thank
I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.